Welcome back to the Cross Discussion. However you decided to tune in with us today, I'm your host Cody, Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're joining from. Great to have you here. Today, I'm joined by Matthew, who is a new face on the podcast as well, which is awesome. We've got Jaden and Mia as well, alongside me hosting, and we've got our special guest, Steve. How are you?
Good, mate. Yeah, appreciate it.
Great to have you today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation.
We're talking about, was it discipleship today?
Yes.
Yeah, so that'd be exciting to hear your thoughts on that topic. Yeah. So we like to play a game of Would You Rather, just as a bit of an icebreaker. I'll ask you a couple of questions, and Matt as well, because he's a new face.
Cool.
And we'll just get your answers for those ones.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So let's start off with either, would you rather a man bun or a man ponytail?
This one was deliberately put
Yeah,
in for
this
you.
was my
For
personal
me?
question
Yeah,
for you.
Wow. Thanks, Mia. I think
You can't say neither. You can't
no.
say- yeah,
I think a man bun, only from just like a hair management point of view. Like a ponytail, that's a lot of hair,
Yeah.
washing,
Yeah.
everything involved in that.
That is the correct answer.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I
off
have
to a
long
good
hair
start.
as well. What do you think, Matt?
Oh, man bun all the way.
All the way. Let's go.
Yeah.
Come
That's
on.
good.
Yeah.
Come on. Would you rather spend all day sitting or all day standing?
Oh, easy sitting for sure. Yeah, easy.
Easy question.
Just easy one.
Easy.
Yeah.
Standing because it's good for your health.
Oh, come on.
I like it. Good
It's
posture.
a long-term game, you know.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Your
Yeah.
legs will get really, really tired.
Yeah, but that's all right.
I mean, depending on
Do you know if
how
you ever
really
asked to
kinda
sit
used
down
it,
because you're
so.
tired from now on, I'm just going to go, hey, you said standing, mate.
Yeah, true.
Best
Well, that
way.
upon yourself.
You should stand this podcast.
No, we're not going to see his face.
The cameraman would not be happy with that.
He's just going to be the body shot.
Yeah.
Would you rather live as an Olympic gold medalist or a Nobel Peace Prize winner?
I like gold medalist. I like the idea that you could have this story that you could just tell. It's like a little bit secret, like no one really knows it, and you can just sort of drop it in a conversation. But I want it to be something for like really niche, like fencing, like sword fighting.
I was gonna ask
I
you
reckon
that.
that would be cool. Yeah.
That'd be a cool little piece of trivia about yourself.
I actually have a gold medal, if you didn't know.
Yeah. So
That's
good.
what it's for.
Just look for any opportunity to fit
Just
it
in
in.
conversation.
Yeah.
About you, Matt?
Oh, probably like a Olympic gold medalist as well.
As expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good because like it's a piece of history in itself as well.
Yeah.
You know? It's pretty cool.
What would yours be for?
Like something like really cool, like, like swimming or
Yeah. Cool.
running. You know.
No. There you go. Would you rather give up breakfast or dinner?
That is hard. I don't eat breakfast all the time, but when I do eat breakfast, it's like really nice. Like
It's good.
Yeah, I love pancakes, so I would probably have to give up dinner because I couldn't give up pancakes.
I mean, you can have pancakes for dinner.
I know that's true. That's true. Yeah. Okay.
True.
Yeah. Dinner.
Fair enough.
I'll give up breakfast because I can't sleep on an empty stomach.
Fair enough.
good.
I would also give up breakfast because I never have breakfast
Yeah,
anyway.
okay.
So
Not a big sacrifice.
it's not going to be a big
Yeah.
sacrifice. No.
Yeah.
Cool.
Would you rather be a deep sea diver or an astronaut?
Oh,
That's a good one.
that is a good one. Both are great options. Hey. Astronaut though, surely going to
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Astronaut. Lock it in.
Astronaut. It's good.
Cool. I think that was all unanimous for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Nothing against deep sea divers.
No.
Yeah, no.
If you're watching, we still do love you.
Yeah.
This is our classic question. We ask
Okay.
this every week.
Okay.
Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?
Definitely the 100. Yeah, just
had
the
a bit to
size.
think about this
Yeah,
one.
the size thing. There's a lot of them, but I feel like I'd have more of a chance against
agree with
100 of those.
You can just kick them.
Yeah, you could kick
What
them.
if,
horse
what if they're
size
working together like a strong team though? One team's
Are
better
they
than one
intelligent
star.
enough to do that?
Yeah.
though?
You play cricket, a team's better than a star
I
player.
don't think I could run
Come
away
on.
from that really big duck.
That's
It's chasing you.
True.
Ducks are so aggressive.
Yeah,
Ducks
yeah.
are feisty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah, more than a horse for sure.
Have you seen them fish? boom.
Take it out.
Straight in, man.
It's like imagine a horse-sized one of those. Boom.
Actually, I've never thought about in the water for this question. Oh my goodness. At least the horses can't really do much. Yeah. True. Yeah.
Wow.
If you deep sea dive as well.
Yeah, they're
Anyway, okay.
Even if you're an astronaut, there's nothing they can do.
Yeah.
So who knows?
It's cool.
All right. So
That's great. Oh yeah, one horse-sized duck.
Okay, you'll take the big one.
Because I'll just take a big loaf of bread.
That would distract them.
Hey, you want all the way?
I think was it Ty last week that said that?
I have no
I
idea.
think Ty literally said, "I will tame it." And we're like, "You're fighting it. You're not going to be able to tame it."
That's not an option.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was cool to kind of get to know both of you
That's good.
in terms of like your personality and what you'd prefer out of the two. Bit of division based on your answers, but you know, we're all mates here. Who really cares?
Yeah.
So we're going to ask you a few questions today, Stephen. So for our first one, if you're looking at the end of like some of the gospel books, we see Jesus does this thing called the Great Commission. And I know not everyone's heard of that, but it's pretty much his last words before he ascends to heaven. And he talks about how, you know, we need to go and make disciples of all nations. So, you know, looking at that, this season we're looking at purpose and identity. So obviously discipleship's got to be pretty important and a part of our purpose. So we're looking at that today. And yeah, I was wondering why is discipleship a pretty important thing to us to think about, especially as believers and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into this topic, and I appreciate being here. And probably it's because I can, if I think about my own personal and spiritual growth, so much of it can be or is a result of or can be pointed towards a discipleship relationship. And I think there's a bunch of reasons for that. If I think about Jesus's words, he was on earth to spread a message that was life-changing. And when we as Christians understand that and it really penetrates our heart and causes our behaviours to change, we can't help but want to share that with other people. And a discipleship relationship, and keen to get into what that could look like, is really just a vehicle to do that. It's just a vehicle to share what Jesus has done in our life with other people.
Yeah. That's good. Really cool. How have the words from obviously Jesus' last words, the Great Commission, how have that affected your life?
I think there's a deep responsibility, isn't there, to share, like I said, what Jesus has done in your life or in my life personally, share that with other people.
Yeah.
And it's powerful that, you know, obviously it was intentional that was the last thing that he left his disciples because he didn't want his message to just sit with those 12 or 100 or, you know, whoever he had touched base with while he was on earth. He needed it to spread throughout the world. And with him going, you know, left the Holy Spirit, but with him going, he couldn't be that vehicle anymore. And so his disciples needed to be that. And how can they do that? Well, they can do it through this thing or this vehicle, this tool called discipleship.
Yeah. I want to know your personal definition of discipleship. So obviously we've got a biblical definition, but how can that definition kind of apply to yourself personally?
I think all discipleship needs to be is there's two things that I think are really important. I think it needs to be intentional and it needs to be consistent. And so sometimes it's a bit awkward or it's a bit, you know, it can be a bit weird to go to someone and be like, oh, hey, like, could you disciple me? And because that word is so loaded. But I think it's really important to sort of pull back some of the, the Christianese, the Christian language from it and really delve down to what it is. And all it is a relationship that, like I said, is intentional and consistent. So it's intentional about growing deeper spiritually, number one, but also personally, holding each other accountable. Again, there's lots of ways you can do that. And it's consistent, you know, and consistent doesn't have to be weekly. It might be, you know, fortnightly or monthly. It could be daily. I think those two things are super important in a discipleship relationship.
How do you go with that consistency? So let's say, like, you know, over time as you grow up and get older, you know, you might talk to people about Christ, they come to know him. Like I find it, especially in life these days, it's pretty busy, you know. We've got, like, I remember in year 12, I had assignments and all these things I was balancing. How do make the time? Is it a mindset type thing to really be able to go and intentionally disciple? Because that does take time to build into someone's life.
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's two parts. I think with discipleship, it's really important that you're being fed into and you're also looking for opportunities to feed out to other people.
Yeah.
And so if you are finding that, I guess, deep discipleship relationship, someone that's feeding into you, it's almost natural that you'll want to find the time to, go and do that with someone else as well. But yeah, it's a great point, Jaden. Life is super busy, and like anything that is worth doing is really hard work, right? So we've got to work hard to carve out that time. But you'll see that the more you invest in those relationships, the fruit of your life will change and will come out. But you've also got to not be so, you don't have to be hard on yourself as well. Things are so cyclical as well. Yeah. Like I've had people that, I've had relationships with that fed into me and that I've been feeding into that only happen for a period of time as well. And then, they move on. School teaching is a great example of that. Like I have a certain amount of time to invest in, students, and then they move on. And, I try and be pragmatic about it, and I joke about it a little bit, but I joke because it's true. Like when year 12s leave, the chances that you're going to see them again consistently is really, really small.
Yes, really.
And so, it's good to be realistic about that. But you don't have to be sad about that because you had this time where you could invest in them or you could build a relationship. And that's okay as well. You don't have to just have one mentor that sits with you for your entire life. It's not always possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously Jesus had a very incredible discipleship with his main disciples. Do you think that with us in our lives as we go and disciple others, that we can use Jesus' example in how he discipled his people to help us in a way?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. And so I guess what things did Jesus do that we would want to emulate that? I suppose there is totally those, that consistency that we talked about. And I guess there's that vulnerability or that openness that Jesus had as well. Like he was willing to just walk his life with these disciples and be really open and honest with them. With all of his all his life, right? There weren't aspects that he was hiding, and sometimes they didn't respond very. Like he told them from the very start that he wasn't going to be around forever, and they didn't always respond well to that. But he was really honest with them that was always going to be. Always going to be the case. And intentional, right? Super intentional. He was really clear the whole time what his mission was and what he wanted them to do.
That's good.
Yeah.
I guess it's even just taking notes of how he lived, because obviously that's what fueled him to then go on to disciple in his relationship with the Father. So we read about in the Bible, Jesus going to a quiet place all the time to pray and to make time with the Lord, even right before he dies, I think in the Mount of Olives or something like that. He goes away and makes time. And I guess it's looking at that and saying, you're not always going to just be discipling in life. That's part of it. But I think, would you say the main bit is firstly also looking at the Lord and seeing the Father? And then that'll kind of fuel you to again go and love other people type thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reality is that we are all disciples of something, right?
Yes.
In life, doesn't matter what it is.
Whether you're Christian or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Ask how it kind of ties in with even people with non-faith and that sort of thing.
Yeah. If you think about the things that you pour your time into, or the things that are shaping you to be the person you are, we have influences that are everywhere from our culture. And so, you can be a disciple of, your sporting team, or a disciple of your work, that's where and I know what you guys are talking about identity this season, and it's so linked, isn't it? Because, you're a disciple of whatever you find your identity in, that's where you put your time, and that's what you become. And so, rooted in your relationship with God through Jesus, if that's your number one, if that's where you find your identity in, that's what you want to be discipled by. So part of that comes from your personal relationship, spending time with him in the Word, but what a blessing that we don't have to do that by ourselves, right? Yeah. We have fellow Christians that we can travel with, because it's hard. It's really hard. And you can be disciples of different things at the same time, right? The pull of the world is strong. and it's always going to seek to take you away from that first love, you know, that central truth of that faith that we have in Jesus. And that's why you need other people, some older, you know, some at the same stage, and also be looking to feed into other people. You need other people around you that can hold you accountable and keep you on the course.
Yeah, it's kept me accountable. I like the lads. And we were talking about that throughout the whole thing. Without that discipleship, I don't know where I'd be. I've got the Father, but obviously having those people around you is really important.
Yeah, it's good.
So that's a good point. So, you know, people your own age, like how would you describe discipleship? Do you think it has to be just people that are older than you or just people that are younger than you? What do you think it looks like?
Oh, I reckon own age can even be some of the most effective things, I would say.
Yeah.
Because, you know, with an older person, we're talking about wisdom later in the season, but, you know, even with an older person, I can look to them, I can listen to them, but having someone my age has been so crucial to me. And if I look at where I'm at now, I owe it so much to these boys, and two of them are on the couch with me right now, and even all my Christian friends, Mia as well. And I will say, you, sir, you've been a pretty big impact in my life as well.
Thanks, mate.
I had Mr. Gill for year 12 physics and a little bit earlier. So, and my dad, all these people have discipled into me. And dad especially, so thankful to him for the example he set. But having people your age that you can just share life with, be vulnerable with, and, you know, it's also there at the same point. So they're struggling with the same things. And, you know, you can talk to them and they'll go, oh, I'm struggling with that too. And you can work through it, go into the word. Yeah, so crucial. Love it. Surround yourself with good, like, what is that quote? Like, you are the 5 people.
You spend the most time with.
Yeah. Crucial you disciple each other in that group.
Yeah.
I feel like it's so perfect how God called you to high school teaching, and especially being in a Christian school, there's a lot of non-Christians in the school. And I know you were such a good mentor for me personally, even though there's like, you're a bit older than me. I still took a lot from your teaching.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. So because you guys talk about, you know, that same level as being really helpful. So when it is someone that is older, what are the things that you're looking for? Like, what do you take from your teachers or from your parents, or is it their experiences or the way they deal with situations or just the way they behave? Like, what stands out to you, do you think? You can keep talking about me. No.
He's just talking about
Pump the tires up.
Exactly. How did I change it?
I feel like with age, wisdom comes with that. And so I look up to a lot of old people, like my youth leaders, my teachers.
Youth leaders are really old.
Yeah. Even that small age.
Pull me out for that one.
Yeah, even just a small age difference, it's really changed my life.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I think it's not even, I'll say for you and also for my dad and a few other people I've looked up to, I'd say it's not even what you say in the word, it's just how you live type thing. So I'll see, for example, with my dad, like, he's not perfect all the time. Like, he has fights, we get in arguments, but I think it's seeing that he always tries to better himself and be more like Christ. And, you know, I can see, you know, he makes mistakes and he can tell me about his past and the mistakes he's made. But I can see through his life and the experience he's had, he's trying to be more like Christ. And even seeing you that in your teaching, sir, living it out at school, whether those students came to know the Lord or not, I think they're always going to remember that you stuck true to the faith and you showed them what it meant to live like Jesus. And I think it's just seeing them live it out and knowing they've been living it out for a long time. It's been really cool.
I agree. And I really appreciate you guys sharing that. It's super encouraging because I had that same experience, right? Like, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about being a high school teacher is because I had a high school teacher that saw me and invested in me and did those same things, right? His example was enough to make me think about faith and think about you know, how that would interact in my life and what decisions I wanted to make. And when I think back to what it was about that person, it was relationship for sure. You got to have things in common, and it's, you know, it's got to be a good friendship almost first. But it's that like genuine care, and it's looking at the example that he was living, and what. And then you reflect on your own life, don't you? And you're like, well, what do I want to be? Especially as a teenager, like, you know, high school students are staring down the barrel of their life, right? They're about to exit this safe environment that they've had, and they're going to have to make some really big decisions about life and what that looks like. And so it's at that time that you're trying to decide the type of person you want to be. And so I had a really strong influence because I saw the way that he behaved and I thought, hey, that's how I want to be. So it's almost, he was intentional with me, but there's almost an unintentional discipleship as well, isn't there? Yeah. Shout out to Mr. McQueen. He's retired now, but great guy, Peter McQueen.
And the other thing I thought I'd quickly jump in, just because I think it's valuable to listeners, is the other thing I really appreciated in my mum, dad, and you and everyone is the honesty. So like I remember this one day I was in year 7 and we were at like this lads camping trip thing, and I remember I just did something stupid and you're like, Jaden, you just got to get your head screwed on. And you just gave me a real honest chat though, and over the years we had many of those, and I appreciated the honesty and I could trust that. So I'd say if we're discipling, I think it's pretty important to be honest and open, even when it's hard to hear. Especially with us our age, even in the lads. We got to be open and honest, because I think that's the thing that makes it, the vulnerability in the relationship type thing.
Definitely.
Otherwise it wouldn't be the same in any friendship. And I know you've got a lot of friends that you're pretty close with as well, me, that share stuff. So.
And that's where I think that external older person can really help as well. I will say more experienced person, because if they're intentional in talking to you about your life, youth leader, teacher, whatever it is, they can sometimes offer that really honest window into your life as well. They might find it a little bit easier to speak honestly to you because of their experiences. I definitely had a young adults pastor when I was like your guys' age, and those two things, right? Intentional and consistent, and that's all it was. Like it was awkward at start, and it was like, hey, let's catch up for a coffee and stuff, and it's a bit strange to begin with, but over a decade, we still have a relationship.
So cool.
His name's Steve as well. Steve Gray. He's a pastor here on the
McQueen
Gold Coast.
Steve.
He actually ended up marrying his wife, sister is who I married. So now we're brothers-in-law as well, which is pretty cool. So, started as a discipleship relationship. Which is very cool. But that consistency and having that person that's a little bit more experienced and saw something in me, and was able to speak into my life. Transformational. Transformational.
Yeah, and do you think it is like as important to disciple as well as being discipled, or what do you think each one weighs up in importance wise?
Great question. I think if we talked about Jesus' example, right? He perfect example in all things, obviously. But he sort of had both, didn't he? Had such a strong relationship with the Father and was open to everything that the Father called him to do, and then was constantly pouring that out to the people around him. I think both are super important. I don't think one is any more important than the other. I think when you're younger, it's more natural to have someone that's a bit older than you feed into you. But I also don't think we should shy away from opportunities to feed into other people, because people hear this. You hear this all the time, but it's so true. As you look up to people, teachers or youth leaders, there is a year 7 guy or a year 7 student, looking up to you, or a kid's church person, a kid looking up to you, who think you are like the most amazing person in the world,
I guess just spending any time with them.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, I remember when I was young, if you had the older kid, the youth, or even the young ad coming up to you and just saying hi or playing handball, that would have made such a difference to me as a kid. Or
in school, if you're a year 12 and you intentionally go and spend time with a year 7 student or something like that, leadership position or no leadership position, and you're really genuine about that, they will just think you are the coolest person in the world, and then you have an opportunity to influence with that as well. So I would say it's more natural when we're young to have people feed into us, but certainly don't shy away from opportunities to feed into people that are younger than you as well.
I've got a question. I was talking to Jaden about this before. How do you cope with, or what can you do? If someone's come to know Christ, but they've fallen away. Is there anything?
You were already in a discipleship relationship?
But they've fallen away.
Yeah, tricky, hey? Yeah. Really hard. I think, like most things in life, and this is part of growing up and learning, you know, you can only help people as much as they want to be helped, right?
Yeah.
And so if they were open to continuing, you know, to catch up or to talk, as hard as it is, it's your job to keep them accountable with love and with grace. And it's not about, you know, hey, why are you doing this stuff? Why are you, you know, living with your girlfriend, stuff like that. Nothing like that. It's about, hey, you know, like just be straight up. Like, how are you with the Lord? You know, how's your relationship with Jesus?
The honesty.
Yeah, honesty. And, you know,
that's
like
good.
maybe they say, oh, you know, it's not going great, you know, you're doing it. Well, you know, let's just park that. Let's park what you're doing in your life first. Let's just get that right. And you share from your own experiences, you know. I guess the flip side of that is if someone is not really open to engaging, and I've had, certainly experiences where you're catching up with someone and then you feel like you hit just like a bit of a brick wall and you get left on scene and stuff like that. And it's hard, but you know, you just got to trust that you played a part in that person's life,
Yeah, of
and
course.
you know, God had you in that person's life for a reason, and now God's got that person.
You've sown that seed
Totally.
already.
Yeah.
It's just up to them to actually ask for it to be, I guess, grown. Then at that point.
Yeah.
And also knowing there's so much power in prayer.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can. There's heaps you can do without catching up with that person, right? Yeah, just by chatting, but just by praying for them, lifting them up constantly. Yeah, that's great. Good question.
Yeah. So we're discussing purpose and identity in this season. Do you think it'll help us to solidify our purpose and identity and find a mentor who can disciple us individually, just from like specifically purpose and identity wise?
Yeah, I mean, totally. I think like I said a little bit before, we are all discipled by something, and the thing we are discipled by is the thing that we're finding our identity in, right? So, you know, I heard an analogy once, you know, if you have like a $50 note and you put that on the fridge, and every morning you wake up and you look at that $50 note, and every night you go to sleep and you look at that $50 note, your bank account, whatever it is, your life is going to be dictated by growing money, because subconsciously that's constantly what you're exposing yourself to, right? And so it's the same thing with culture or anywhere you put your time or your energy. That's where you're going to what you're going to be discipled by and what your identity is going to be formed in. So it's so crucial, especially when we're young or young in our faith. We have found this new identity in Christ. He has saved us, and we recognize that we don't have to live for the world. We don't have to do anything because of what he's done for us. It's so important to protect that.
Yeah.
Reminds me a bit of the parable of the sower, you know.
What
and
was
the
what even
seeds.
was a parable, by the way? It's like a
like a story that Jesus told, right? Yeah. So Jesus tells this story about spreading seed, and some of the seed goes on rocky soil, but the one that stands out to me is there's seed that takes root, but then the weeds come up and choke it because the foundations are not strong. You know, we're so susceptible to losing that identity. It's so important that we have people around us that can continue our faith journey, and that's where I think good solid discipleship relationships come in.
It's like building your house on the rock as opposed to the sand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Following up, from that question, what do you think what point do we get to where we turn into a mentor for other people as well? Like when can we kind of discern when that point is for us?
I think literally you just need to be a little step ahead in your age or your experience or your faith journey. I think that's all you need to be, because I think people can sometimes, wait. They're like, I'm just going to wait till I finish uni. I'm just going to wait till I finish Bible college or get out of youth group or finish school, because then I'll have experience to be able to pass on. But we've already spoken about how powerful it is just to share with our peers, right? Because you might be just a little bit ahead on the journey, and some things you might be ahead on the journey and some things you might be behind on the journey because of your experiences. I think that as soon as you have a faith in Jesus, I think you have an opportunity to disciple someone that doesn't have faith in Jesus, and share why your life has changed with that person. It's a lot easier, like I'll be honest, it's a lot easier to be fed into, and it's a lot harder to feed out, but they're both just as important.
Hey, with feeding out, do you have any practical ways you can disciple? Like, I know you're in teaching, so maybe you might have some examples there, but even just for anyone in any vocation?
Yeah. I think it is really important that you don't make it it doesn't have to be a big deal or this scary thing. Like it can look so simple. So some of these deep or long-term discipleship relationships I've had, I said at the start, there's intentionality. You got to be intentional about it. So we're not just catching up for a coffee or or to go for a walk or something just to gossip or to chat about this or that. Like I intentionally want you to feed into me and feed into you. And consistency. And then when you're actually at the meeting or whatever, there's lots of things. There's some tools that have been really helpful to me is thinking about our relationship up, in, and out. So our relationship up with God, our relationship it's in ourselves, but it's also our relationship in with the people around us, and then out, what are we doing with our faith? Like who are we sharing our faith with? And that can provide a little framework where you can ask questions like up, how are you going with your relationship? Your Bible reading, whatever it is. In, how are you going with relationship with the people around you? And then out, how are you going with sharing the word? Even as simple as like I've had other frameworks where you just talk about how you're going like physically, how you're going emotionally, how you're going spiritually. Just it can literally be as simple as that. It doesn't, you could like work through a book of the Bible or some content. I think that can sort of meld into sort of a Bible study sort of thing, which is good as well. But the maybe the issue with that is you get stuck on a bit of head knowledge, whereas discipleship is really about how do we make it practical. Like how is this being outworked in your life? So it could look as simple as that. Cool. Can honestly just as simple as be like, hey, talk to me about Steve Gray, the guy that I caught up with. He would have 2 questions all the time. He would say, what is God saying to you, and what are you going to do about it? And that that would kick off an hour-long conversation, and that's all you had to talk about.
Yeah, cool.
Even just being a light in someone else's life can like spark those conversations, and then you can go, oh, I'm a Christian, because people will go, oh, how are you so happy all the time?
Yeah. Why you don't swear? That's a big one that I get like all the time.
It's just how you live it out, eh? And that can point to Christ itself.
So cool.
It's great.
Well, with that, unfortunately, that is all the time we do have
been great
for today. But it's been awesome having you, Steve.
Yeah,
it's been incredible just listening to kind of your insights and your thoughts on discipleship. I've learned a lot. I'm sure the rest of us have learned a lot just from this episode, which is really, really cool. So again, thanks for jumping on the podcast with us.
Good. Thanks, guys. Awesome. Thanks for having me. You guys are doing great work. Appreciate it. You're great young men and women. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know why you looked at me when you said this. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for. Thanks to Steve for joining us. If you're watching online, however you're joining from, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, we'd love to engage with you. We're trying to create a community with this podcast. So just drop a comment, give us suggestions, give us even would you rathers. We'll pop them on there and I'll ask those ones in future episodes as well. So it'd be really cool. Give us suggestions. Follow us on @thecrossdiscussion on Instagram. We post a lot of the behind the scenes there. So if you want to have a bit of a look at what it kind of looks like filming this sort of thing, go check that out. Drop comments. We'll engage with you as well online, which would be awesome. Any questions, we'll answer them best as we can as well. Next Tuesday we've got Peter coming in to discuss wisdom, which will be really good, incredible, kind of a good follow-up, I guess, on this episode, I think. So that's going to be exciting. For now, we'll see you next week. Let the discussion begin.